Hey everybody, Jim here, and welcome to a new series on the channel called Unlocking the Keyword. The series is born out of an attempt by me to stick to one keyword for more than a handful of games. If you've followed my written form battle reports on the weird forums, you know I can't go 5 games without switching keywords, and it's reached a point where while I have a wide knowledge of Malifaux, I lack the depth of knowledge on particular keywords to really improve my gameplay. And one thing that I've always heard for newer players is to play a crew for 10 games to get to know it. So I figure, why don't I try putting that into practice and record the process and let you all join me in that journey. So we're going to do that, and for my first season, I guess, of Unlocking the Keyword, I've chosen the Qi and Gong keyword, which is led by Youko Hamasaki. Just getting it out of the way, this is her core box. This image comes from Weird's website. All the cards are from the Weird app. If you need to find Youko, if you're interested, this is the box you're looking for. So the way this series is going to go is I'm going to be doing 3 rounds of testing, basically. I'm going to play Qi and Gong into each of the 4 current strategies under Gaining Ground Season 1, and I'm going to somewhat curate the scheme pools to make sure that I don't have too many duplicate schemes. Basically, if I randomly generate the scheme pool and a scheme shows up that's already appeared twice, I replace it with the next scheme that hasn't appeared yet in any of the pools. I want to test the keyword into as many different scenarios as I can to get a better idea in these 12 games. So the first round of games, I'm going to stick to just the keyword. No other models, and I'm going to avoid upgrades. This is primarily to see what these models do, on the base of it. And I'm going to be building a core crew by the end of this video that is going to be in all of those games. After that, I'll probably do a little video like this to share what I've thought about the keyword, and then the next 4 games I'm going to open up hiring to versatile models and upgrades and see what adding those into the Qi and Gong bring to it. Again, do another little catch-up video, and then for the last round I'm just going to have no restrictions whatsoever on hiring. So this includes master hiring, maybe out of keyword hires, tax hires, truly see what I can do with the keyword and the 10 Thunders faction. And with that out of the way, why would I play Qi and Gong? If you're new to Malifaux, Qi and Gong is considered one of the stronger keywords with one of the weakest masters in 10 Thunders, if not the game. I want to know if that bears out in my experience, because I find my experience doesn't always line up with the global experience, and that's okay. Again, this is a game, you should be playing what you want to play. And what interests me about Qi and Gong is it is not a straightforward crew. It is a tricky crew. There's a couple of things that are common throughout the crew that bring that out to me. A lot of their models are disguised. They can't be charged, and right now we're in a game state where there's a lot of melee going on. So being able to blunt that seems okay. There are 2 minions in the crew that have this aura called Distraction, which puts people on negatives to resist willpower effects. Well, Yoko's all about willpower attacks. it feels like a win more effect. I'm not sure if it's actually going to prove to be necessary, but it's neat that that's in there. The big thing about Qi and Gong is the leverage ability. Leverage gives you pass tokens at the start phase for every model with leverage, assuming your opponent has revealed a scheme. So the second part of leverage is that you get to spend pass tokens for positive twists on any duel. So let's just recap on that real quick. Leverage is an ability that is coming online most of the time, turn 3 and later. I don't think you use leverage for the positive twist to duels, except in dire circumstances, or say you're going up against manipulative models that you need to put down before they activate, like Candy. The strength really seems to be in activation control, because in later turns, being able to out-activate your opponent to secure your schemes is often what's going to cause you to win the game. I've played a fair bit of Terra in Outcasts, and her ability to generate pass tokens allows her to really score points for me. So I'm interested to see if I get the same kind of performance boost with activation control from Qi and Gong. A good number of her minions have the lure attack in Qi and Gong, and lure is powerful. You know, Malifaux is a very positional play focused game, and being able to pull models out of position, especially into a web of debuff auras and willpower attacks, it seems strong. Now, that I say that, the Red Chapel crew in Resurrectionist has a similar feel, and it's panned as one of the weaker keywords in Rezzers. So it may be just that I am overvaluing lure, and I'm interested to see if that bears out. Lastly, the Qi and Gong keyword does a lot with the distracted condition. Now, distracted is probably the weakest condition in the game, for a couple of reasons. Distracted gives your opponent a negative twist to any duel that they take targeting one of your models, and then afterwards they reduce the distracted amount by 1. So distracted is a stacking condition, which means you can spend multiple actions giving a model a big old stack of distracted. But if your opponent takes condition removal, one condition removal effect wipes all that distracted away. And distracted only ever reduces by 1 and imposes a single negative on any duel. And any model can concentrate, which gives them the focus condition, whose effects counteract distracted while also providing a positive twist to damage if it's a damaging effect. So they have that as a way to get around it. They have condition removal, and they have access to the assist general action, which is going to remove distracted by a variable flip with no target number. So your opponent has like 3 ways to get around distracted. The thing about the Qi and Gong that I'm interested to see is not stacking large amounts of distracted on few models, but a little bit of distracted on a lot of models. Because once I can outpace the condition removal and it becomes inefficient for my opponent to focus everything and assist everything, maybe then I'm starting to put in the pressure on their action economy. That's the theory. That's this sort of hot take look at the crew. So those are the things that are really intriguing me about Qi and Gong and why I want to start with them. So what I would like to do for the remainder of the video is go through all the models in keyword, just give my initial thoughts on them, and we'll wrap up by talking about what my core crew is going to look like and what my thoughts are. Might as well start with Youko herself. Youko has average defensive stats above average willpower, but really low wounds. 10 is very low for a master. And Serene Countenance is an okay defensive ability, kind of. The problem is, just like Distracted, Focus gets around Serene Countenance, and they still get a positive to their damage flip. And 10 wounds is not going to go very far if someone sends a dedicated beat stick into you. She has leverage. The big thing about Youko is the other 3 abilities on the front of her card. Unseen Manipulator is probably the thing you first hear when you think about Qi and Gong. Factions with access to Arcane Reservoir for +1 hand size very often prioritize including it, or in Arcanist's case, they jokingly refer to the upgrade that provides it as an auto-include. So having a master that just gives the enemy the opposite effect, that seems pretty strong. Calm Demeanor and Informants are both 6-inch auras, and if you take a quick look on the back of her card, she also has a 6-inch attack, Blackmail. All of these are effects that, to me, say Youko really wants to be an aggressive, in-your-enemy's-face model. So I'm calling her like an aggressive tempo piece. Calm Demeanor synergizes with Blackmail and a few other effects in your crew to discard cards from your enemy hand and you draw at the same time to create an imbalance in card quality and card control. Informants let you manipulate the top of the deck, and together what this means is you should be able to know whether or not an action you're going to take is going to go off, and you should be able to know if your opponent's going to go, whether or not they're going to succeed or fail. That doesn't change the fact that they're going to do something anyway, but it opens up mind games, right? You can use Informants, look at the top card and put it back. They might go, well, if they put it back, it might be it's a bad card, maybe it's a good card. The mind games effect, I don't know how that's really going to play out. To me, I see this as just get in there and try and use these various effects to engineer card advantage. For the back of Yoko's card, she has 4 attacks, which is a surprising number, but again, no tactical actions. Youko needs to be engaging with the enemy to do things on the board. Exotic Weapons is a terrible attack for a master. I'm not going into this with a negative viewpoint. I'm trying not to go into this with a negative viewpoint, but a stat 5, 2, 3, 4 attack on a master is just not something I want to do. The triggers are okay. I don't see no witnesses going off if you're trying to be within 6 inches of the enemy crew. So Exotic Weapons is there, and that's nice. What I think really is the star of the back of Yoko's card is Blackmail and Backroom Dealings. Backroom Dealings, her bonus action, has 2 very obvious uses, and it shifts roles during the game. Early turns, while your opponent may not have revealed schemes, you're going to want to, I feel like you want to force that Shady Dealings trigger. It forces discards. If you stay within 6 of the enemy, if they have a 5-card hand, Backroom Dealings while they have 2 unrevealed schemes. Now they have a 3-card hand, and you've drawn 2 cards. And you know what the other 3 cards are. That's a really good deal, especially if you go early with Youko. Risking It All, the built-in trigger, after your opponent's revealed schemes, you can't get Shady Dealings anymore, so having it built in is nice. But really, Risking It All is not... I'm bad at guessing the cards in my opponent's hand, so I'm not expecting it to do damage. I'm really just doing that as a source of information at that point. And it's a free action, it doesn't cost you anything. Let's talk about Blackmail. Blackmail is the quintessential soft control action. Soft control, I'm defining, is it's presenting your opponent with a choice. Your opponent is always going to choose the effect that benefits them the most or impedes them the least. So the base effect of they may discard cards and you get pass tokens minus the ones discarded, it basically reads, if this goes off, I either get 2 pass tokens, a card and a pass token, or 2 cards. You pick. And your opponent is going to say, what do I need the most? All right, I'll hold on to my cards, you get pass tokens, or I'll discard cards so that you don't, you get what I'm saying. And that's why I think the We Own You trigger is so important. By popping We Own You, you're essentially saying you will discard 2 cards and let me draw 2 cards, or I will obey one of your models. That, on top of backroom dealings, if you get the Shady Dealings trigger, you're talking these 2 actions can drop your opponent to 1 card in hand in Yoko's activation and draw you 4 cards. Sure, you're not changing the board state. Youko is not designed to change the board state herself. That's what her crew does. At least that's what I think. And that's where I think the power for her is. Either obeying a model, because if you get the trigger to go off, you can charge. You can do anything with obey with the We Own You trigger. Technically, you can also use other models' quick actions, which is situationally neat, but again, your opponent can control whether or not it happens. So I don't rely on it. What I rely on is figuring out what is better for my opponent and planning for them to do that. The last action before we move off of Youko, Riddles in the Dark, seems like the thing she does with her AP after you've blackmailed in backroom dealings. Handing out Distracted is not the best thing to do with a master AP, but if you have 2 extra AP left over after blackmailing once, then you might start that spread of Distracted that can keep her alive. What's neat about it is the Information Network trigger. Because it's either resolved immediately or after resolving, as long as you have a tome in hand, you can cycle those tomes for better cards. So at the worst case, you're spending Yoko's action to cycle a card. At best, you're cycling a card or gaining cards while also putting Distracted on the enemy. So all in all, a master that's definitely focused on card manipulation and not changing the battlefield. Now, moving on to her totem, Chiyo. Chiyo, first and foremost, to my eyes, is a schemer and anti-schemer. She's a significant totem. That's a big deal. She can drop scheme markers for you. She's move 5. She's disguised in stealth. If you put her on a flank away from the action, your opponent will have to dedicate someone to hunt her down, which for a 2-stone model, maybe it's not worth it for them. And if it is, well, you've pulled something out of position that might help for you. Subterfuge is neat, but if you're in subterfuge range, you're in stealth range, and your opponent can hit you. Inconspicuous, the last ability on the front of her card, that's something that tells me that I really want Chiyo in my enemy half of the board, which again reinforces that idea of Chiyo is a scheme runner. Now, the back of her card to me is, it's nice that it's there, but offensive stats of 4 are really bad, and I don't think you would ever take the sharp wit or misinformation actions and expect them to go off with that stat of 4. Biting Insult, maybe. I see a place for Chiyo to be, centrally located, using Biting Insult early to give you extra pass tokens and help spread that Distracted engine. But again, If you're in range to insult somebody, they're in range to punch you back. I do see Chiyo as your scheme runner in your core crew, or in your core box. But she's a totem. What else could you ask for? Now, getting into the actual hireable models, let's talk about Bill. Oh boy. My few times I've seen and interacted with Bill on the table, I have been impressed. Okay, first off, he's a 9-cost model with 9 wounds and armor 1. He's above the curve as far as I'm concerned for durability. Most models have a wound count equal to their cost, and if they have armor or hard to wound, usually the wound count goes down. The cost goes up relative to the wound pool. Bodyguard giving your friendly models cover. With a 30 mil base, it's not a big bubble, but with all the distracted in the crew, guns are a viable alternative to shoot you down. So giving your girls cover seems like it's a good thing for Bill to do early game. Now, we've talked about leverage a couple times and how it only comes online turn 3, usually. Some folks will actively avoid revealing schemes until turn 3, turn 4 to negate you gaining leverage tokens. Well, the longer they go without revealing a scheme, the longer it is that Bill might take a few wounds, and when they eventually do reveal the scheme, we have unfinished business, healing Bill for 3 and giving him an extra AP. That is a really strong incentive to have them scheme early. Because if they wait, put actions into Bill, punching him with his armor, he can use soul stones. Let's say they drop him a few wounds, they score something, boom, he's healed back. And with 3 actions, Bill can do a lot of damage. With Ruthless is icing on the cake, but you have a lot of models forcing simple duels with Terrifying or Manipulative, and Bill can just get in there and not worry about it. Let's look at the back of his card real quick. Bill has solid gold on the back of his card. The Naginata is a fantastic attack. It has a flat damage track, so I'm not looking to take focused attacks with Bill, because really the difference between 3 and 4 is 1 pip of damage, which is not a huge swing between weak and severe. But if you have that stat 6 to hit, as long as you cheat the hit, you'll be doing 3 damage, which is nice. Crit Strike is, as always, a good trigger to have come up. And if you need to do damage, with stones and high rams in hand, going to a min damage 5 is no joke. The You're Coming With Me trigger, though, that's where I see a lot of opportunity for Bill. I mean, we're talking about a guy who charges 5 inches with his charge, hits someone 2 inches away, so that's hitting somebody 7 inches away from where he started, pushes them 2 away, declares You're Coming With Me to push them an additional 3 inches away, so the model is now 12 inches away from where Bill started, and then Bill places in base contact with it. That's like 12 plus base size move for Bill with 1 action. And he damaged the enemy in the process. And if you jump down to Heroic Intervention, there's nothing stopping him from using Heroic Intervention and doing the same thing, especially with that Debt of Gratitude trigger there. If your opponent brings scheme marker schemes into a pool against Youko, eating a scheme marker from anywhere in play, that's a decent use for a 5 of crows. And if they don't bring scheme markers, Heroic Intervention into Naginata, you can do 2 damage from Debt of Gratitude, min damage 3 from Naginata. That's 5 damage and 12 inches of movement from Bill with effectively 1 AP. Yeah, this guy's silly, and you can make him fast if you get fast if your opponent reveals a scheme. Bonkers. He has the challenge attack, which is really good for Youko, Thing about challenge. You don't want to use challenge on an enemy beater. I know it seems like a taunt, and in other games you want to taunt the big scary thing. The big scary thing's already going to go after Bill. It's the only thing that can put him down. But if your opponent has a condition removal piece because you're going to give him distracted, challenge the condition removal piece. Now your opponent has to discard a card to use anything targeting his own friendlies. At stat 7, you're probably going to get the challenge off. And focus attention is just a great trigger to have on it. Bonus points if you're within 6 of Youko, and that every condition removal they try and do gets you a card back. Stoic Nod is... It exists. I don't think Bill wants to use Stoic Nod. However, it is a heal at range 6, and it does have the Galvanized trigger. So giving out Focused and heals might be worth it. We'll see. So all in all, Bill's a durable, mobile beater. He does a lot. I'm really excited to see him on the table. Likewise, the other henchman in the keyword, Hinamatsu, I have seen in a lot of Neverborn crews, and I am really excited to give her a try myself. So, she's 8 wounds, 9 cost, armor 2. That's pretty dang durable when you consider she can spend soul stones. She's move 6. That's really fast. A rush makes it even faster. Rush gives you a 9-inch threat on a charge. And remember, you can charge and not take the melee action. So basically, once per activation, she can just go 8 inches in a straight line if she wants to. She's just very fast. Wicked is situationally nice. I don't think I use Hinamatsu to tie something down. I think I put her into something to blend it to death. And that's what Flurry's for. But knowing that if they try and walk away, I get that extra attack, it's nice enough. Speaking of, Hinamatsu is very simple on the back of her card. She has a sword. Stat 6 with a built-in positive is really good. It alleviates any hand pressure you might have from using her. 2-3-4 damage is nothing to write home about, except she has really good triggers. Armor piercing. Now, if anyone brings armor against you, you're doing damage through that, and that's... A lot of models with armor don't have a lot of wounds. Being able to just cut through that is really nice. Onslaught is how you can also deal with armor with Onslaught. You can also just deal with anything with Onslaught. You have the stones and or the masks. Hinamatsu can easily get 6 attacks a turn. And that's assuming she doesn't have anything else going on. That's bonkers. She has a stat 6 lure, so first lure we've seen in the crew, and 2 really good triggers. A Rip and Tear, making you lure and then pull someone and hit it with your sword. That's just more sword attacks that you can pull people in on. And that's just... It's just you're not wasting actions just pulling someone in. The Beautiful Clothes trigger is okay. But again, it's another incidental distracted, which can help mitigate some of the incoming offense. Her tactical action, forcing those simple duels or giving out distracted, again, that's a way to attack the hand. It encourages you getting in the middle of an enemy crew. And especially if your opponent only has, 3 or so cards in hand, because you went with Youko earlier, they're going to fail those willpower tests. They're going to get those distracteds, and it's going to compound interest. At least that's what I think. In practice, I've seen Hinamatsu eat so many different models, it's not even funny. I think her and Bill form a good tag team as offensive pieces go. But they're the henchmen, so they're naturally going to be a little flashier. Let's take a look at the minions. We're going to start with the Geisha. The Geisha are the crew box minion that come with Youko, and they're very simple. They have really poor defensive stats. With 4 wounds, they can be one-shot by most anything. They are disguised, and they are the first source of distraction, in the crew. Yeah, if you can keep them safe, run them up next to an enemy model that's next to Youko. Hey, for 4 stones, making sure you get off all of Yoko's attacks. Again, I'm not sure if it's win more or if it's necessary, but it's a way to do it. Again, 2 attacks. They have a lure. They have a stat 6 lure, which is very strong, and they have galvanize on that stat 6 lure, which is very nice. It's especially nice if you're looking at doing things to your own crew, like luring your own models around, because then it can turn a 6 of masks into move a model and give another model focused. Sharp Wit. With a 4 cost minion, you're not expecting them to do much damage. Sharp Wit is probably better on her because A, your opponent's going to be on a negative to resist her, and B, giving enemies slow, distracted, or giving out another model distracted with the crow trigger. Geisha seem, if left alone, to be able to really ruin the action efficiency of your enemy. But that's the problem. Any model can look at them sideways and kill them. So I'm not sure how effective they'll be versus just being an easy kill. The next model is Bunraku, and Bunraku are great. Again, it's a 6 cost model with 6 wounds and armor 1, above the average for durability. Move 6, again, very fast. I think these are your scheme runner, minion scheme runner. Willpower 4, not great. But if you're running them on schemes, hey, maybe that's not as bad. The disappear trigger is okay. It's win more. I say it's win more because to get the disappear trigger to go off the first time, you have to beat somebody when they hit you targeting your defensive 5. If they're not hitting your defensive 5, you know they're not hitting your defensive 7, barring good flips. Especially if you consider your opponent may not have the cards in hand to cheat. On the back of their card, they have a Brutal Blade, another kind of sword. Stat 5 is okay for a minion. Crit Strike's okay on a minion. And the Daze trigger is really nice. Like, no lie, stunning an enemy and pushing it away allows you to get out of combat. Risky Maneuver, the bonus action, another way to get out of combat. Yeah, it does a damage to you, but a 3-inch push and gaining focused, it just, with 2 ways to get out of engagement, having armor and a move 6, all that screams scheme runner to me with these guys. Stat 5 lure is nice to have, and being able to be out on the flanks, you can easily use Bunraku to pull a model along with them, or maybe run a pair of Bunraku together and have them lure each other. I don't know. Rip and Tear is a nice trigger to have if you need them to hunt down another scheme runner. That seems like a good enough use for it. But on the whole, I see these guys as dedicated schemers that can be left alone and take a hit or 2. The Kunoichi are weird. I'm going to say that right now. Cost 6 wounds, and really no defensive kit that's consistent or strong. Disguised is nice, as we've discussed. Bulletproof is super niche. But, as we've said, guns might be the main thing your enemy uses against a Qi and Gong crew. So reducing that damage, maybe that's not the worst. Nihilism, I don't know why they have Nihilism, but knowing your opponent can't stun, stagger, or slow you, or poison you, or whatever that seems good. Tools for the job is what interests me the most about Kunoichi. Tools for the job on other models and other factions I find incredibly useful. And makes me look at the triggers on the model's actions. the Kunoichi don't have the typical support tactical action that I expect from something with tools for the job. What they do have are exotic weapons, Yoko's attack, but there's a stat 6, so they're already better than the master at beating. Reposition's an alright trigger. No witnesses is probably more likely on a Kunoichi because I can see them running on a flank or being off on their own. And that would put them to min 3 and armor ignoring, which is nothing to ignore. Unexpected ferocity. I think a lot of folks fixate on unexpected ferocity because going, oh, you have distracted, I can go to min 4 stat 6 with my Kunoichi. Yes, you can do that. I think unexpected is the operative word here. I don't foresee getting a lot of value out of it, but I will keep in mind that it exists. What I think is neat about them is the shuriken. Now, a 1-2-3 damage flip is nothing to write home about. Moving 3 inches when you take it? Okay, so you get a movement and an attack. That's not too bad. Ignoring concealment's really good. But they have galvanize on this trigger, as a trigger on this attack. So, what I'm seeing is it might be a little janky, but I can see using tools for the job to give them built-in masks, and then throwing shuriken at one of your own models, maybe Hinamatsu or Youko even, and just relenting to declare the galvanize to give focused to one of your beater models. And you'll do 1 or 2 damage because you're min 1 and you're relenting, and then this would be the one time I would probably use stoic nod from Bill and maybe get another galvanize. So that seems like a useful way to go about things. I've got your back to give another model focused with the preparations trigger, and otherwise just pull one of your models out of engagement. It seems to me like a Kunoichi is a good piece to have in support role. Maybe back with Youko to keep her out of danger. If someone does come in on her, you can have the Kunoichi charge in and kind of play that like backline defender, pocket beater sort of thing. I don't know. There's a lot going on, but again, with defenses of 5 and 6 wounds, a dedicated attack on her is going to put her down. Our next model is the Charm Warder, and this is cross keyword with Qi and Gong and Monk. If you spend any time on the 10 Thunders forums or Facebook group, you'll know Charm Warders are the bee's knees. The Enlightened and Harnessed Qi combo gives you this resource that cannot be removed like Focus can, and allows you to get more value out of cards that otherwise you wouldn't get value out of, by increasing their stat by 2. When you add in leverage, this means that Charm Warders can make do with a lot smaller resource pool than other models might. The other 2 abilities they have, Barrier to the Other World and Lantern of Souls, these 5-inch auras, A, encourage you to get clumped up with your enemy, and B, are situational godsends. Barrier to the Other World, not such a big deal. Summoned models, typically I find 2 wounds to a summoned model when it comes in is not going to make or break it. They're either summoning big models and they have the wounds to spare, or smaller models and they're not summoning near the Charm Warder. Lantern of Souls, though, a lot of models with demise effects are built around that demise effect, and turning that off, like turning off Leviticus's demise effect, is a big deal. On the back of their card, Qi Blade looks like a pretty good attack. It's another stat 6, 2, 3, 4 damage that ignores incorporeal, which is nice. And spending chi to ignore the negatives to the damage flip, that's pretty cool. Being able to reliably force through 4 damage if you spend the chi and have the resources. Hey, reliable damage is reliable, right? It's another pedantic, but or anyway, all the triggers are good. Exorcism is execute for summon models, which is just really good. Jinx, I think, is actually what you're going to do more often with the Charm Warder in a Youko crew, because it gives you the Shady Dealings trigger. So now you don't have to go with Youko early to get that hand advantage, but you absolutely can, with a Charm Warder or two, really wreck a hand and draw a bunch of cards. And you give out Injured in the meantime. Injured is good. It makes all your other models hit easier, and again, harder for your opponent to resist. So it's more of this whole theme of getting more bang for your card's buck. Lastly, their tactical action, Chaos Theory. I don't know about this one. I hear good things about it, and I mean, picking a suit, like I said earlier, with Yoko's bonus action, I'm not really the best at like picking those suits. It's kind of a crapshoot for me. But hey, free damage is free damage, and if you have a moderate crow that you don't want to use with Bill, sure, forcing your opponent to discard the top cards of their deck, maybe not the worst thing. I can see value in it if you're clustered around a bunch of models, and I can also see value if your opponent's doing things like big brain Brins, calculate the possibilities. Oh, you thinned your deck and you put a bunch of Severes in? Here, get rid of a bunch of your Severes again. I see these as situational hires. I think if I'm going into a crew that has deck manipulation like me, or has demise abilities, I want Charm Warders. I'm not sure if I want them all the time, but we'll see. The last model that we're going to talk about is the Kabuki Warrior. Now, the Kabuki Warrior is they're about to come out in, as of the time of this recording, the models are actually coming out. These are like the top end model for Qi and Gong, and I've heard a lot of good things about them. 6 move was really good. 5s for defense stats is okay. It's a little low for an 8 stone model. 8 wounds is nice. They're your second model with the distraction aura, which they're going to stick around a lot longer than a Geisha will. The combat finesse, since you can engineer such a card advantage early, it kind of doesn't matter. To me, it feels like, oh, if your opponent can't cheat because of combat finesse, that's fine. But if they can't cheat because you've done your job and shredded their hand, what's the actual difference? They have a great sword, which is a fantastic attack. I mean, Lady Justice uses it, and can give out distracted with the attack. That's okay. But I mean, a great sword's a great sword. They have a stat 5 lure, which is not bad, but it has the rip and tear trigger, so hey, it's another model that can pull in an enemy and then hit it, and since they wouldn't have charged, they get the benefits out of greatsword. I don't know what a New Horizon is doing on these models, but sure, if you have a 5 of tomes, being able to mess up the enemy schemes seems like a thing to do. But yeah, this is the model. I think if it's a killie pool, I want some Kabuki Warriors. So that's a very quick gut reaction, hot take, initial impressions, call it what you will, of the Qi and Gong crew. For this first round, I think I'm going to be doing a core of Youko, Chiyo, Bill, and Hinamatsu, because both of those 2 models I think do a ton of work, and a single Kunoichi. That leaves me with 26 stones to build out the rest of the crew and have a cache. I think it's important to have some flexibility to try different things out in the pools, and I'm thinking I'm going to need a decent sized cache. Youko looks like she wants to stone 1, maybe 2 triggers a turn. I might stone for cards depending on how reliably I'm able to force the discards. So I'm looking at like a 8 or 7 or even 9 stone cache to start. The reason I'm including the Kunoichi, I think there is something to be said about giving out 2 focus to your own models for a measly 2 damage, on average 2 damage. I also think there's something to be said about being able to recover severe cards from your discard pile with the tools for the job. Between her and Youko, I see a lot of strong card filtering ability. And while the Kunoichi is fragile, the utility it provides and the pocket beaterness it provides, I think is worth it to make it a core element of the crew. Everything else seems situational or like a tool best used in certain scenarios, and that's why I left them out. I do suspect that the keyword is going to suffer in killy pools. That's not a surprise. We've said from the get-go that this is not a killy crew. But Bill's the only source of healing. He's also one of your main damage dealers. You can't do both. So I think in games where I need healing, I'm going to suffer. Likewise, there is no condition removal native to the keyword, so I think I'm going to suffer from offensive conditions as well. I'm not sure what else that I'm not already discussed I'm going to have to deal with playing Qi and Gong, but I'm excited to find out. So if you've made it this far, if you play Youko or Qi and Gong, or have played against them, leave a comment below. Tell me about your game and how it went. I'll be following this up with some video reports soon, and I look forward to having you guys along with me on this journey. Until next time, take care.